Welcome to We Question and Learn. We're celebrating our 20th year here on the air at WQLN NPR. I have a special guest today, and I'm always bragging about 20 years, but let me introduce you to a fellow that you probably do know already, John Vanco. And John, I believe you have more than 50 years under your belt.
Well, yeah, more than 50 years for sure.
And that's relative to the wonderful, wonderful facility downtown that's grown from, virtually scratch. When did you start at the Erie Art Museum there?
I started with the Art Club of Erie's Art Center in 1968.
That's great. What did it look like back then?
The art club had always been a volunteer organization, and they had a kind of a resurgence in the starting in the late 50s, and they did a bunch of kind of homespun fundraising things. I remember they always talked about the spaghetti dinners.
Yes.
And they raised enough money to get a sweetheart deal on the house at 338 West 6th, which is known as the Wood Morrison House, and has today been incorporated into the campus of the Hagen History Center.
And the campus now extends across 5 buildings?
Yeah. That's quite impressive.
It is.
They had a part-time gallery program, intermittent galleries, and artists who taught classes there. And so they hired me as the first professional director, or first director, and the first professional employee to build a program. And it took a while, but we built a program over the next 50 years, and in some senses that culminated in the 2010 opening of the new building on Fifth and Faces on Fifth and State Streets, and known today as the Erie Art Museum.
Well, you served for half a century as the director and curator of the Erie Art Museum. And John, you spent a lot of time there. I know you have. But you had more than just an awareness of a great facility and art. You have a certain penchant towards environmental correctness. And subsequently, that became integrated with the Erie Art Museum in a way. Could you explain how that happened?
Yeah, as I became more concerned about climate change and mass extinctions and all the other environmental crises that we face as a species, I began incorporating more of that into our programming at the Art Museum, and working up toward when we built the new building that tied together the historic buildings that the museum had acquired over the years. We did that as a LEED building. We got LEED Gold status for that building, which means it's a green building, and it's there are others in the city now. The Erie Insurance, the large supporters and boosters, and they really love that idea of building a green building, and so they've adopted the LEED process too.
You accomplished that in 2010, the LEED Gold Certificate building connecting all the 5 historic buildings at the complex. And then you had yourself, or with your team, developed a green operations policy. How did that come about? Were there templates, or were you just working on research? How did that all come about?
Yeah, they're well, not templates exactly, but yeah, we looked at what other green operational policies looked like and adopted it to our operations. It's mostly about being thoughtful about waste. That's a really huge and hard to solve issue these days with plastic and everything, and it's basically not recyclable, and so anything that you do tends to end up contaminated one way or another. But also, the cleaning products that we use, there are much less harmful cleaning products out there, just as effective as what people use today, but don't have all the kind of ingredients that cause illness and problems. And it's a relatively easy changeover, actually. But it's just being thoughtful about how you operate and trying to have as little impact on the natural environment as possible, except in a positive way. And so the building tried to respond to that, with stormwater directed into an underground percolation area, so that it didn't go into the storm sewer, and highly efficient HVAC systems that use the exhaust air to warm the incoming air or to cool it, depending on the season. But those kinds of things that really they don't cost any more, and often, frankly, cost a lot less than the way we do things today. But they just haven't caught on yet. So hopefully they're catching on. And one of the ways that they catch on is to have somebody step up and do it and show that it can be done.
I believe there's an exhibit on your accomplishments relative to the building.
I don't think so. There was for quite a while.
Oh,
I've been
okay.
gone.
Yeah.
I've been retired for over 5 years now. So
Yeah.
things have changed.
That's okay. But you had one going while you were working on the project. And then the museum itself, under your directorship, in 2011 received the nation's highest honor, the National Medal for Museum Service. How did that come about?
Well, it's an award that's given annually to museums and libraries, and I was urged to apply because of our success with the building and all our programming. I mean, a very intense, vigorous programming schedule at the museum, and we were honored to receive it.
And by 2015, you got another Sustainability Excellence Award in programming. So it kept the museum in great prominence.
Yes. Yeah. That second award was from the American Alliance of Museums, the National Museum Association gave us their Green Award. Yeah.
How does someone get these awards? Are folks just aware of what you do, or you go to meetings, conventions? How do you market this? How does this all come about? Hard work.
Yeah. I mean, doing the good work is one of them. Professional conferences are important. I feel I participated for many years, for decades, in the American Alliance of Museums, attending their annual meeting, and I was on the founding member of their Green Museums group, and so staying in touch with people, and then the Sustainability Award, we were invited to apply for that. And the same thing with the I think anybody can apply or nominate a museum for the National Medal Award, but it's a pretty select group. We were honored to be part of that.
John Vanco, let's talk about some of the things that you accomplished there. It was always fascinating to walk through the museum, and I think you've arranged well over 500 or at least 500 different exhibitions. Starting from scratch, what's the process? Oh, it's okay. Well, I'm asking you the easy questions now, John.
Yeah, that's good. They're easy. The stuff I haven't thought about for a while. There's no one way to do it. There's lots of different kinds of exhibitions, but as a general rule, you decide what it is that you want to show, and the first thing that you want to do is to define the nature of what you want to end up with, the product. What story are you telling? What messages are you communicating? And one of the first things you have to do is develop a checklist. What's going to be in the exhibition? And of course, the exception to that would be something like the spring show that is a juried show that you don't know who's in it till you go through that process. But generally speaking, any other kind of exhibit, you start with a checklist, and then you build your story around it. You write the text. You add other elements, whether video or whatever. God knows today all the different elements that you can add to an exhibition, and follow it through step by step. It's sort of like a simple version of making a movie.
As if it were that simple for what you've done. You went through a major renovation. That was a challenge.
we went through a number of renovation projects. We moved from that West Sixth Street house in 1983
Hmm.
to the old Custom House, which was the Greek Temple, the wonderful, amazing bank, 1839 bank on State Street,
Yes.
which is everybody's idea what a museum looks like. Because at that time, up until that time, we were known as the Art Center. And so we changed our name to the Art Museum because I wanted to encourage people to help build the collection. And if you say Art Center, they don't necessarily think of it as a collection, although we had been working on a collection since I started, and well before that. There were actually 60 some works in the collection when I started.
I was going to ask you a more pointed question. Not only did you create these wonderful exhibits there, but I believe there was art in storage and you had to cycle these through, particularly when the new gallery was built. It gave you that opportunity anyway.
Yeah,
Uh, I,
and they continue to do that. I'm really happy with what the current director, Laura Dimension, is doing, and she is mining that collection for exhibits, and with great success. It's great to see that work reappear. Yeah, over the years, I'm a collector myself,
mhm.
and of course, being able to be the collector on behalf of the museum was just perfect for me. So we built it from those 60 some works to over 8,000 works are in the collection now, and
Mhm.
it takes all kinds of different forms. Often we acquired works in connection with putting together a traveling exhibition because we supported the museum in part by putting together exhibitions that we then sent out to other museums and university galleries and so forth. We really, it was a major part of our income for many years.
Well, let's move forward. The big deal, I think, in your life to a great degree was founding and directing, and you still do, the Erie Blues and Jazz Festival. I know that's the love of your life, and you're still directly involved in that, and it's upcoming in August. So let's talk about that.
Okay.
I know you're working on that. What are the dates for August here?
August, well, 5th and 6th, and hopefully we're going to have some activities on the evening of the 4th as well. So 4th, 5th, and 6th.
Okay, really working into a big event. That was a constant project for you. It was an evolutionary project. What did it look like when you first started? What were your objectives, and how did it turn out as you started the event out?
Well, it was remarkably like it is now in many, many, many important ways. Uh, at at that time, and I think that was 92. I think 1992. I think we started the festival, and I had been presenting music with a heavy emphasis on jazz and new music and some blues and uh, African music and other stuff, but heavily heavily emphasizing jazz for over a decade at that point.
Mm-hmm.
And Jim Spiegel, who passed on just recently,
Mm-hmm.
was a joined the board at the museum, and he was a great supporter. And he had organized an event at Perry Square the either the year before or 2 years before the first festival. And he came to me and he said, "Let's do a festival."
Yeah, yeah.
and and frankly, to me, that wasn't a great idea because the music that I liked was these intimate concerts, relatively small. If we had 200 people, that was a whoa. That was great.
Yes.
uh, and so, but Jim said, "No, no, come on, let's do it. I'll help you with it. I'll help you raise the money. I'll help you with all of the details and whatever." So we did, and we did it in Frontier Park. And we used one of the city's, well, I think they only had one at that point, the city's portable stages.
Mm-hmm.
And we did it for just one day. It was I think it was a Sunday. And the headliner I got was Charles Brown, who is, that was one of the most outstanding artists that, in the field,
Mm-hmm.
and both highly respected in jazz and blues circles. And he wrote songs that everybody would recognize, Drifting and Drifting, and the Christmas blues song, and which I've forgotten which the title is, but anyway, Charles Brown, the major artist, and that was so successful. People just loved it. They had a great time. We started, I think, with a Dixieland band, and then we went through several local bands, and we wrapped it up with Charles Brown. And so the next year it was like a given. You have to do this again. But you better make it 2 days.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. Thank you, John. Duties as assigned, right?
yeah.
And so over the 30 years, we're going into the 31st year, and August will sneak up on us too quickly. The logistics, do you start a year ahead of time, half a year at a time, or is it like a renewal?
It's like a year-round process, really. There's some things you have to do early in the year, including looking for money. That's the hardest part, and the part I'll be most happy to leave behind, frankly.
Yes.
We're struggling to raise money for this year's festival. As much as people love it, you'd think they'd just be stepping up all over the place.
Well, nothing's automatic anymore, John. It's difficult. But on the other hand, when people go, the reward is immense. It's just a very calm, happy time. People are enjoying themselves. Is there a website, or do they go to Facebook?
Yeah. ErieBluesAndJazz.org.
Okay.
We'll get you there. And there's a very active Facebook page as well. And I think we're also on Instagram, and I don't know what all else. But yeah, there's a definite online presence for the festival. It's when we started, there were, I think, 3 other festivals. There was We Love Erie Days, the Summer Festival of the Arts, which is gone, and the Greek Festival.
Right.
That was it. All these other ethnic festivals and everything have occurred since we started the Blues and Jazz Festival. So it's one of the oldest festivals in town. And as a consequence, today we're competing with, I don't know, the last time I counted, there was over 15 different festivals that are taking place.
Yeah, see what you started?
Well, I won't take any credit for starting that, but boy, it's made it harder to fund the one that we're doing. But on the other hand, I love all that activity.
It's a family event, right? I see kids there. I see families. I see a lot of smiling faces. It's a very calm and appropriate place, Frontier Park, that is, to bring the family for this event.
Oh, it is. And what LEAF, the Lake Erie Arboretum, which was founded, I think, and inspired in part by the festival. Dan and Kathy Dahlkemper really put their heart and soul into it, and still do, for years. And they have transformed the Arboretum, the Frontier Park, into the Arboretum, and added so many amenities, the trails and the Kane Outdoor Classroom and the gazebo and the on and on, the bridges over the creek that weren't there before. People may have forgotten that. So that is such a great setting. That's half the battle.
Well, it's a treasure.
The weather's the other half.
Well, over the years that I've gone, and that's a couple of decades worth, it's been basically very good. It's been very pleasant. People bring their lawn chairs. There's been tents. There's been a lot of groups that go. That was very interesting. You see people go to a festival, but now I would suspect over the last 20 years in my recollection, groups would gather together and attend.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. We have reunions, family reunions, class reunions take place at the festival. And it is, for me, it's like a grand reunion each year. You see people you hadn't seen since last year.
That's true. So where does the music come from? How do you manage that? Do people call you? Folks that know about it probably ask to renew. Yeah.
Oh yeah, and especially the local performers, of course. They make it clear that it's an honor to play at the festival, and they're eager to do it.
Hmm.
And nationally, national and international acts, because I'd already been plugged into all that for, like I say, for a decade before we started the festival, that was kind of already in place. I'm in communication with artists and agents around the country, and you kind of try to keep up with what's going on. And since the growth of the internet, which, you know, basically wasn't there when we started,
Right. True.
it's
Yeah.
become so much easier because now instead of waiting for an artist to send you a CD or maybe a videotape or something, you just go on YouTube, and
Yeah.
my gosh, anybody with any pretensions to performance is there.
Yeah.
So you get a preview.
As we come up on the festival in August, um,
Mhm.
do you have any idea who's performing already? I'm sure some folks are
Uh,
signed up.
we haven't announced a lineup yet. We're working on. I'm working. This is a transition year. This is the last year that I'm gonna be heavily involved in it.
Hmm.
I hope to just enjoy it in the future, but we're transferring the artistic direction to Matt Walker,
Oh,
and
great.
Matt's
Hmm.
working on a lineup, and I've been working with him, but we also work with a whole bunch of organizations, because when I retired, we spun the festival off from the museum to a separate nonprofit organization under the umbrella of the Erie Arts and Culture,
Oh, okay.
and we decided to expand it because there was a real demand at that time, and Erie Arts and Culture was hearing it particularly, that there's no arts festival
Hmm.
because the arts festival had died some years prior, and there was no arts festival. So we expanded it. We expanded to the third day, so that we had some programming on Friday usually, as well as the Saturday Sunday, and we've added visual arts and dance and poetry and whatever we can make happen. I mean, we've had everything from squonk opera to glass blowing to all these different kind of activities taking place there at the festival, in addition to the music.
Well, this meets or exceeds any festival I've been to. And I wander up to Buffalo and Lewiston, New York, and there's some fantastic performers. Of course, that's a much larger city. But this is as good, or if not better, than a lot of events that I've seen, just even regionally. It's a great event. So we're looking forward to August 4th, 5th, and 6th. And you're mentioning again there might be something Thursday?
No, Friday.
Oh, I'm sorry,
Friday is
Friday.
we're up and back and forth. Depends how much money we can raise
Oh
if we
yeah,
can do something
I
on
mistook
Friday.
you. Thursday would make it 4 days, just what you need,
Yeah.
John. A 4 day
No,
festival.
no, 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 no. Yeah.
Now, the city loves this. I believe it's great culture. It's great economic development in a lot of ways. And
Well, yes and no. The city, the people love it.
yeah,
The city actually charges us to do the festival.
okay. And I'm guessing that's for police and some cleanup, or how does that work?
Well, police for sure, but for using the park, there's a fee, and
Yeah.
for some trash cans and whatever. But unlike all the other festivals except Celebrate Erie,
Mm-hmm.
we're not raising money for anything else. We're not a fundraiser. All the ethnic festivals are fundraisers, mostly for churches.
That's right. Yeah.
But we're not a fundraiser. We're just trying to raise money to support a free event. So it's a little ironic that the city charges us money. Now,
Yeah.
I got to say, the mayor himself personally supports the festival quite handsomely, makes a nice gift. But it's about time that I think that the city recognized that this is an asset and it should be directly supported.
Well, yeah, and I think you just clarified it for quite a few people. Fundraisers, that's what nonprofits do, and this is an event. You do this for the entertainment and the enrichment of our community. I'm glad you
Right.
brought that up. And it's always been that way, correct?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
no,
Always.
it
Yeah.
started from scratch. Anything new or different that comes to mind? Or, hey, let's not wreck a good thing. Let's keep this going exactly
Well,
the way it's been.
as I step aside, I certainly expect and hope that there will be things new and different to get to some other people's perspective in the leadership. Matt's doing a really, really great job, and I hope he can continue as the artistic leader of the festival. We're building a board. We're wide open to people who want to be involved. We have a small board, and we could enlarge it without any difficulty. So if anybody's interested in being a part of it, please contact me or go through the festival website or whatever, and we will plug you in.
Thank you. Hey, and I always mention with the guest the gratitude that you have for your board, the folks that help you make this work.
Absolutely. Oh yeah.
How many people?
Right now there's just half a dozen people on the board. I'd love to see that doubled. So if people are listening and they want to be involved, boy, we could use your help.
That's the invite. Okay, folks, you can just Google Erie Blues and Jazz Festival going into its 31st year. We're honored with speaking with John Vanco, who's, well, you keep saying you're retired, but you and I have a club. We never retire. It just keeps going on and on. The former director and curator of the Erie Art Museum, and of course puts his heart and his life into this wonderful festival going on its 31st year. I want to personally thank you for the half hour. This was great. Really appreciate your commentary and your insight, both on the museum, art in Erie, and this absolutely fantastic blues and jazz festival. Thank you for being on the air.
Thank you, Tom. Thank you for this program that I look forward to every week. Or, well, used to be every week.
Well, close enough. Well, you can listen to it anytime. Online, it's on 24/7.
All right.
Thank you. Welcome to We Question and Learn. This is Tom Pines. We're celebrating our 20th year on the air here at FM 91.3 WQLN NPR. Today I've got a very special guest from the Bridge Builders Community Foundations. I have the president and CEO of that great organization, Trenton Moulin. And Trent, how long have you been the president of the organization?
This is my 12th year, Tom.
That's fantastic. How did you come into the role, by the way?
Wow, that's going back a ways at this point, Tom. But the then director, he was a part-time director. His name was Steve Kosak. Approached me and said, "Hey, have you ever thought about working at a community foundation? The position's gonna come open in a few years, and I'd wondered if you would consider it." And he kind of took me under his wing, started showing me the ropes, kind of introduced me to the community foundation model and what it does for the community and what it could do. And after that, they had an interview process. I think I had 2 interviews by the whole board. Talk about being in a firing range.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was extended an offer. It was August, I believe, because I remember it being hot. And
Yeah.
The board chair at the time came by, and after their board meeting, and made an offer, and here we are today.
Yeah,
So,
since September 2011, we're sitting here and we're going to bring people up to speed on the Bridge Builders Community Foundations. Now, people sometimes correct me and ask me as well, why are you using foundations as plural? And Trenton Moulin, could you explain how this works within your organization?
yeah. So let's see here. In 1977, the Venango Area Community Foundation was created, and they realized because some of the outlying counties were not being served, such as Forest and Clarion counties, but there were donors that wanted to support those areas more and more. And so this was prior to me, but in 2007, 2008, they decided that they wanted to go through a rebranding process, but also a governance change to incorporate these outlying counties to make sure that they were represented from the governance structure. And also they rebranded to Bridge Builders Community Foundations because they created the affiliate structure that we have today, which incorporates the Venango Area Community Foundation, the Forest County Community Foundation, and the Clarion County Community Foundation. And each one of those has a board. It's a committee that runs that location and makes discretionary decisions as far as grants and scholarships. But also they're a big cheerleader when it comes to philanthropy in those areas, and helps us keep that local leadership and understanding at that hyper level.
So
that's why it's called Bridge Builders Community Foundation.
And through all these years, you meet together and make decisions how you allocate funds to, say, to a good cause or to a community charity or a community outreach organization. How does that work? Or do each of you have a list for yourselves and you bring it to the table to see how the funds would be allocated?
Yeah, so the local committees, they make their recommendations. They know their areas the best. Mm-hmm. And then those recommendations from each one of those areas that we serve are then filtered up and then for final approval at the Bridge Builders Community Foundation Board of Directors level.
You and I are familiar with the Erie Community Foundation. As a foundation yourself, how do you compare? Is it a similar structure? Is it different? How do you operate down there in Oil City?
Well, they say if you've worked with one community foundation, you've worked with one community foundation. Because we all have similarities, but we're also different because the communities that we serve are different. And so Erie Community Foundation has a lot of similarities to Bridge Builders Community Foundation, vice versa, but we're also a little bit different, and just because of the governance structure, the way we approach things, the size, for that matter, too. So there's a lot of similarities, but there's probably a few differences also. So
you have a board, and each of your organizations has a board. How many folks are on your board in Oil City?
Well, we have the governance board, which comprises of individuals from each of the areas that we serve. And that has 11 members. And then we have a affiliate committee that runs each affiliate, and those have various amounts on them, I think anywhere ranging from probably 10 to 15.
Okay. And you meet how often?
Every other month on the affiliate level and on the board of directors level, but there's also various governance committees, grants committees, finance committees, etc.
Since you've started, how large was it when you first took on the task of being the president?
We were approximately, I think, just south of 5 million 12 years ago.
That's pretty substantial. And where are you today?
We are probably around 17 to 18 million.
That's quite a exercise in growth. And is there individual donors mostly, or would you say there's boards that decide that they want to participate with you? Just a snapshot. Are there heroes? You don't have to mention any names. Or are you pretty well dispersed in the way you raise money?
I would say the majority of our contributors and partners in philanthropy, donors, are individuals. But we also work with private foundations. We work a little bit in the corporate giving side of things. We work with other trusts, and that type of thing, especially during the COVID pandemic and that type of thing. We tried to mobilize a lot for the benefit of the nonprofit community and the individuals in our communities.
So as president, you're outlining goals and objectives, or do you work as a board, or both?
I would say it's a great partnership. The board, we really set those policy. We set governance structures. They evaluate our adherence to the strategic plan that was just approved at the beginning of this year, which I'm excited to be rolling out. It's kind of our guideline. It's our directive for the next 3 years. And I really, really like the piece and the supplemental pieces that kind of buttress that. I think it's got aspirational goals. And what I hope to see is that we really use it as a tool to align both staff and board and volunteers and donor partners as we try to benefit the community here in Venango, Clarion, and Forest counties.
Well, we're on the line. We're on about a half dozen podcasts or more, actually, venues. Give us a picture of your area geographically. It has a huge background relative to history. I don't know if that affects the Bridge Builders Community Foundations, but sort of paint a picture of your community and the communities that you partner with.
Yeah, it was called the oil regions back in the late 1800s because oil was first struck here in Phil, and it definitely impacted what we do today. And we can hopefully leverage that past to look for an exciting future. My office is in Oil City, and we know how that got its name, and we see the impact that oil had in our area. Just because of, I think it created and cultivated a culture of philanthropy. I think that carries on to this day. At different levels, of course. There's the refineries and the corporations are now here, but I think that culture of giving and culture of giving back not only monetarily but in time and volunteer has carried on since that time.
I think people can Google your area and they'll immediately see a wonderful history that goes back, well, I think you mentioned the late 1800s. So the area is well founded. But the grandfathered money, maybe that's not the correct term, but would you say the old oil money is gone? Would I be close?
There are a substantial amount of charitable trusts that are here. I'm mostly familiar with the philanthropic monies that were left.
Right.
I know we work closely with probably 5 or 6 of those, and we try to work with them to kind of coordinate our funding, to make sure we're making the biggest impact and sharing information and that type of thing. But there's definitely a legacy of philanthropy, and we actually I have a couple DVDs on my bookshelf here that was funded by a local trust that talks about that. But be glad I could wax poetic for a long time, but I think there's definitely a culture of giving that we see to this day throughout our area.
And so people understand just a touch more. You have a very interesting office location.
Yeah, you do enjoy that.
I do enjoy where you
Tom.
Where you work.
Yeah, we are in the National Transit Building Complex, which was a subsidiary of the Standard Oil empire.
Think about that for a half a second. What an incredible legacy. And the buildings are pretty much the same, would you say?
They've changed definitely over the years, minimally, but still, it's. I'm in the annex, which was the worker bee side.
Mm-hmm.
The executive side was in the red brick building that's attached by a bridge that goes over an alleyway called Pipeline Alley, and you can surmise where that name came from.
That's right. Yeah.
But it definitely kind of roots you in kind of our past, but it also helps to give you a lens to look through the future, too.
Well, the one side has a very historic, or at least it's decorated properly relative to the oil region and the history involved where your organization lives. It's a fascinating stairwell, so to speak, but the building itself still has woodwork and different components that were there, would you say, back to the early 1900s and maybe late 1800s?
1903, it was built, and then the annex was built 3 years after. And they stained the wood with the oil that was floating down Oil Creek.
Think about
They
that.
soaked it up with rags.
Yeah.
They soaked it up with rags and then used that to make a varnish because it was so prevalent.
Well, it's an interesting story. There's a big museum down there. I know there's quite a few people that are well entrenched in the history and are very knowledgeable. I would suggest it's a nice Sunday ride.
I would too.
Yeah, and Oil City, for folks who are not from here, about an hour and a half from Erie South, so to speak. Pittsburgh, how far are you from Pittsburgh?
About an hour and 40 minutes.
Okay, about halfway in between.
I won't tell you my record, Tom.
Well, it's sometimes all back roads, but it's an interesting part of the world just to visit, the Oil Creek. Let's let people Google the history and talk a little bit more. Over the years, you've distributed quite a bit of money, working on a base now of just about $18 million. It feels like you've given away more than that over the years in grants and scholarships. Do you have any numbers on your desk there that you can relay to us relative to volumes that you've given away in grants and scholarships?
let me pull that up, Tom.
That's
I wasn't
okay.
prepped for
I
that.
hit
You're
you
gonna
up with
edit this,
the
right?
yeah. No, we go straight through. I cheated because I'm looking at the number and I thought maybe you were looking at the same thing I was. I'm going to help you out. I'm going to
Okay.
congratulate you. We'll get around this question. 14 million in scholarships, grants rather.
Okay.
4.2 million. Oh, I'm sorry. 9.7 million in scholarships, 4.2 million. I've got it upside down. Grants, almost 10 million. Scholarships, just over 4 million. Where I was going with this is, as I diverted you, you folks are pretty good stewards of the money, and all that's managed, would you say locally? Your banks,
It's
your fiduciaries, everyone involved?
yes, we're very community minded at the community foundation, and we try to have that local representation, local accessibility. We have relationships with a lot of professional advisors that I'm so grateful for, and we couldn't do this without them. I couldn't do it without our finance committee when it comes to having that layer of fiduciary responsibility along with the board to bounce ideas around the insight as far as policies and procedures and what have you. Having a lot of sets of eyeballs to look at this and wisdom from our leadership going back decades. And it all started at, 40, 50 years ago almost now.
Mm-hmm.
And that responsibility I take greatly, and to carry out those legacies. And it's something that it weighs on you to motivate you to do well for in the future, and to carry out these charitable legacies is something that we take with the utmost sincerity and seriousness, so that these donors that are with us, and also the donors that are no longer with us, their wishes can be carried out for the benefit of our area.
I always ask about how you choose your board. It may be a little different in your neck of the woods. I count 10 very competent people.
Mm-hmm.
Long-term board members, or do you rotate board members over every several years rather? I think some folks who run community foundations would like to hear what your theory and what your philosophy is on your board.
Yeah, we this is actually pretty fresh because we just had a big overhaul in 2021 of our governance structure, and we implemented terms that incorporate 2 3-year terms, and then you have to take a year off, and you're welcome to come back if you so desire. But they are term limits of sorts. So we always think that a fresh set of eyes, a new perspective, but also having a little bit of a tenure, such as 6 years, because foundations, especially community foundations, are a lot to kind of wrap your head around from a volunteer leadership standpoint. So we tried to strike a nice balance there between tenure and kind of refreshing the insight of the board and having new energy and that type of thing.
Would you say you're predominantly, I want to use the word, governed by donor-advised funds, or do you have a lot of open-ended funds that you can exercise charitable works in the community? How is that working for you?
Well, I do have that in front of me.
Okay, good.
Right now, we're looking at scholarship is about 40% of our assets.
Oh,
and,
fantastic. Yeah.
And these funds that are what we call a field of interest, which is kind of a general field, such as literacy or for historical preservation, that type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Those are fields of interest. Fields of interest incorporate 30%, and then we also manage endowments for other nonprofits, and that's around 13, 14%. So those are the top three.
Right. How does the environment in Oil City affect the foundation?
As far as
the area is changed dramatically over the century. The manufacturing scenario is different. Oil is probably different. There are other things going on down there. For instance, wood. I drive down there. I can't believe all the huge corporations that have moved into the area to harvest wood. Do they help, or is that a day-to-day process for the Bridge Builders Community Foundations as far as growing, soliciting money, getting companies from out of town that are there to help participate in your outreach?
Yeah, well, as you probably know, Tom, we've had what we call brain drain, population decline, that type of thing. We've had corporations move out of the area, that type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, things have changed quite a bit, but we're also trying to assist with that. How do we retain students here? How do we incubate businesses here? How do we provide opportunities for those that are growing up here, that they can stay and be, part of the community and make a living wage for them and their families. So we're looking at all those aspects and how do we retain who we have here, but also attract others from out of the area and make it more of a enticing place to live, learn, work, and play. So it's kind of that holistic approach and working with partners, but also understanding the underpinnings. We've, the last 4 years, we've seen a lot of things change. The sands are shifting under our feet.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of houses were bought. A lot of people selling their homes off the coast. They wanted to move somewhere a lot more low key, right? So they sold their home in Boston and moved here to Venango County because they can work from home now. We're still trying to see how that's shaking out and what that means. So there's a lot of things changing. A lot of things are in flux, but we're trying to keep a pulse on that and respond to that so that we can help incorporate philanthropy to make this area even more enticing for people to grow up here, for families to be here, for people to move here and thrive here.
Just looking at the buildings that you're in, the format, the occupancy has changed over the last 5 or 10 years. Am I right?
I'm a little bit out of that loop, Tom. But,
okay, I was just curious if they were still doing an artist enclave, if retail people were moving into these very beautiful historic buildings. Yep.
They in the transit building here, they do have the artist program. They have a gallery. They have a pottery studio. I'm not as familiar with that as much anymore, but I encourage everybody to see the Transit Fine Arts Gallery or some of the other initiatives too, throughout the whole county, really.
Well, things have changed just in the last 20 years that I've been visiting your community. Where do you see everything going for the Bridge Builders Community Foundations? Is it let's just keep things rolling and help wherever we can? Do you see some growth? Do you see some change in the way you operate or solicit funds? Well, you don't directly solicit funds, but the way you operate relative to helping people. Is there a business plan, so to speak, in place?
Yeah, so we just, as I mentioned earlier, we have a new strategy.
Yes.
And it really kind of provides a framework for where we want to go and providing leadership in areas that we see maybe a lack of leadership or continuity and that type of thing. So we're looking to also help people understand that philanthropy can only do so much, and that we're going to have to do this together to impact change and to make our community a better place.
Let's talk about how many people are at the Bridge Builders Community Foundations. This is sort of a
we're pretty lean.
sort of a compliment in a way, actually.
Well, we're pretty lean and mean. You're talking to 33% of the staff right now.
Yes.
But we have a Director of Finance and Operations. Her name is Lauren Hart. Mm-hmm. And then we have a Michelle Beath, who is our Director or our Development Manager right now.
Okay.
And
just enough to keep the doors open, keep everything rolling, and of course, your duties are duties as assigned. I'm sure the board manages to keep you busy. So the business plan is to keep things running, and as you have done over the last 20 years and the years that you've been there, it's been quite successful. You've grown from 6, did I hear you say 6 to 14 million? Or 5 to 14 million. That's quite an accomplishment in a very narrow space. Congratulations.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
And not to be picky, but it's closer to 19 million.
I apologize. Yeah. I added the wrong numbers up again. You're right. I apologize. It's quite an accomplishment either way in an area that has huge history that's sort of vanished. It's just vanished. There's some great buildings with memories down there that people can come visit. And one more item here before we have to go. If someone just wanted to call you and sit down and chat, maybe have some coffee across the street, how can they reach you? What's the best way to communicate with you?
Please don't email me. I get a flood of email every day.
Yeah.
I would really prefer a phone call, and that's 814-677-8687.
And that's for anyone who would like to learn a little bit more about the wonderful organization that you have in the three areas that you service. Trenton Moulin, president at Bridge Builders Community Foundations in Oil City, thank you so much for taking a half hour out of your busy life, your busy afternoon to chat with me. And I look forward to coming down to visit again, because it's actually a very, very interesting place historically, recreationally. There's a huge museum down there that people should not miss. Two, actually, that I remember. And it's certainly worth a Sunday afternoon drive to come visit your wonderful area. It's a beautiful part of the world. And thank you very much for participating in the interview.
Well, you're very welcome, Tom, and thank you for having me and having a brief moment to talk about Bridge Builders Community Foundations.